Hello! Today I'm going to teach you the basics of Scratch. It includes creating your own sprite, adding costumes, adding scripts, and adding sounds into your Scratch project. Now let's get started. First off, launch your Scratch application. As you launch the Scratch editor, you will see that you already have your Scratch sprite as the default of your Scratch project. Now let's remove this by clicking this delete icon on this thumbnail. Now, we don't have any sprites available in our Scratch project. So from this button, as you hover your mouse, there will be available options that you can pick from. First, to choose a sprite from the Sprites library, the Paint editor built in from the Scratch application, the Surprise button that allows you to pick a random sprite from the Sprites library, and then upload your own sprite using other third-party applications or coming from the internet. But let's use the Paint button. As we click that, a thumbnail will be available on the sprite properties below the stage area, and of course, the costumes tab will be activated. This is the Paint editor of the Scratch application. Now let's get started and use the customization tools of creating our very own sprites. Okay, that's it for our example of creating our own sprite. So, in here, as you can see, we can rename our own sprite. Let's name this as Dancer. While on this side, we can rename the costume as our front. So we're done with our first part. Let's move on to the next part by adding costumes into our own sprite. The easiest way for us to create costumes is to modify all the elements here in our Paint editor. So, from this thumbnail, we're just going to right-click on this and click Duplicate. Now that we have a copy of this costume, we can create another costume for our sprite by modifying all the elements in our Paint editor. Let's just try to remove some parts and create our back view. This is now an example of another costume that provides us the back view of our sprite. Let's rename the costume into back. So what we're going to do is to provide another two costumes that would make the sprite facing left and facing right. So let's go back to our front view and then right click, then click Duplicate. And then of course, we'll just try to modify again the elements in our sprite. There you go. We now have provided another costume that the sprite is facing left. And so, we'll rename this costume as Facing Left. For us to provide another view or facing right, we'll just simply duplicate this Facing Left thumbnail. And then from the Paint editor, we'll just select all of this and then flip horizontal to look like it is facing the right view. Rename as Facing Right. Now let's just arrange this thumbnails and put this facing right at the last part of the thumbnails for our costumes. So done for our second part, creating our own costumes. Let's click the front to make it active, and let's go back to the Code tab. Now that we're done creating our own sprite and add costumes, the next part would be adding scripts for our project. To start with, let's take a look at this part and let's see what we have for our programming palettes. As you can see, we already have here the 8 categories of our blocks, and for each block category, there are a number of blocks that you can use in creating your scripts. So let's get started. From the Control tab, we'll click the Forever block or drag the Forever block into the scripts area. Then what we're going to do is to click the Looks block category and then click on the next costume and drop it inside the Forever block. Going back to Control block category, let's use to wait 1 second to control how will it appear to provide interval of the costume or changing costume of the sprites. You can click this block to run the program, or to wrap this combination of blocks, just go to the Events block and drag this when green flag is clicked on the top of the Forever block. Let's try and see what will happen. Now our sprite is spinning, or looks like spinning, in our stage area. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is to add sounds into our Scratch project. For us to do that, let's click the Sound Stop here on our Scratch interface. As we click on that, as you notice, we already have a pop sounds in our project. But of course, if we want to add more sounds into our project, we will be accessing these buttons. Choose a sounds to select a sound from the sounds library. You can record your own. You can click the surprise button that allows you to pick a random sounds from the sounds library or upload sounds. But for now, let's use the choose a sound. Allow me to use the search button to search for a particular sound that we can use in our program. Select on the sounds and it will appear on the sounds tab. Let's do that for 2 times to add more sounds. Now that we have added 3 sounds in our sounds tab, I think we need to delete this pop sound because we won't be needing this anymore. Now that the sounds are available, let's go back to the Code tab and incorporate this into our Scratch project. We're going to create a combination of blocks that uses sounds. So, from the Control block category, let's just pull out again the Forever block. And then, let's go to the Sounds block category and use the Play sound until done. As you notice, there is a recorder block in here, wherein we can select all the available sounds that we have added on the Sounds tab. So since we added 3, we're going to add some more blocks that we can use of this or for this sounds. And then change the sounds of each blocks. And then to wrap this combination of blocks, we just need to go to the Events tab and add when the green flag is clicked. And now we're done. Let's try and check to see what will happen. Alright, that's it for our basics of Scratch. We have learned how to create our own sprite, add costumes, add scripts, and add sounds. Now it's up to you how are you going to maximize the use of the Scratch application by simply changing the size of the sprite, even adding backdrops here. You can even manipulate the sprite whenever you want it to be placed on your stage area. So that's it for our basics of Scratch. I hope you learned something for today. I see you all next time.